Morning, Chris Whelan from the Wellington Centre of Business Excellence, building better businesses. Welcome to 2024. This is my first day back at work after an interesting break, including a wedding of my son. For those of you that know me, you'll know that was important to me, obviously. I want to talk to you today about leadership, and particularly leadership growth, and how important that is for the success of any organization, the success of whether it's private sector business, whether it's a government agency, whether you own the business yourself, whether it's part of a bigger corporate. Leadership is where it starts and falls. The thing that strikes me is that many business owners, many executives are technically good at what they do. They've risen up through the ranks. They're technically good at what they do. But the challenge is they're quite poor at developing leaders around them. Potentially, they haven't really learned that leadership skill themselves. And so their whole organization, their business is limited by their own ability to lead others and to get others to lead by extension through, instead of through control, but through influence. And so that's a real challenge that I've seen over the last period of time, that people are technically good at what they do, and they've run their business for 20, 30, 40 years, but actually the next level to get their business to run where it can run without them being there every day, where other people take the leadership roles, that's where they really struggle. And one of the things that I think they really need to do is to learn how to coach themselves, not coach themselves, but coach their teams, right? So almost instead of being a doer, become a coach and a facilitator. A couple of things jump out. If they don't get it right, and as I say, they're technically very good at what they do, but what they'll find, what I've seen, and certainly in some of the organizations that I've been involved with, people don't know the direction they're going. They're not quite able to articulate it. They're not quite sure which way the leader actually wants them to move. And so that's the first point. They don't know the strategic direction. The consequence of that is that they feel fairly uninspired. And even if they are doing well relative to themselves, they're not hitting their own full potential, right? Because they aren't good executives don't need to be told how to do stuff, but they do need to be inspired as to what needs to get done and why it needs to get done. And without that, the uninspired executive tends to not bring all of themselves to work. They tend to not, therefore, have the same innovation, same inspiration, and they don't know the direction, as I say. And the issue then is that they're not fully engaged in what they're doing. And even if they're doing well, they're not doing it as well as they could do, and that's the issue. They're not reaching their full potential. So those are some negative outcomes of, if you like, unfulfilled leadership potential. Here's the thing, though. Here's what I know. With good leaders who are able to coach and engage their teams, what you find is that their teams are innovative. They bring all of themselves 100% to work. They're fully engaged. They come with new ideas. They solve problems. And bear in mind, business is about solving problems, helping people add value. So good leaders inspire their teams. They set clear direction. They don't tell them how to do stuff. They empower them to go on and do them themselves. One of the massive consequences, great customer service, right? Almost certainly, because instead of the business owner or the leader having to do it all themselves, their teams are doing it. So it becomes a virtuous circle. I remember, self-referencing for a second, I remember the first CXO role that I took on. I had the title, I was, the chief knowledge officer, and I thought, well, that's very important. But here's the thing, I realized quite quickly that there was a chap up in Hong Kong who really had good influence. And leadership is all about influence. It's not about title. And what I realized in that was that it was more important for me to empower him rather than me trying to get everything done myself. Empower him, support him, and recognize that good leaders listen. Right? Sometimes you're young, you're new, it's your first role, coming, wow, it's all about me, it's all about the title. No, it's not. Whether you've been in business for a short period, whether you've owned the business for a long time, it's about finding out who the important people are on your team, empowering them, growing them, excuse me, and then getting more out of them than you can out of yourself, basically. Because 1 + 1 in that case, it certainly adds up to more than 2. It adds up to 3 or 4 or 5, because you've got so many people around you. Marshall Goldsmith makes the point that good leaders, well, many people do this, but good leaders ask good questions. I think John Maxwell makes the same point. Goldsmith, though, I quite like, he's got a 6-question process. And if you're a business leader listening to this podcast or listen to this on YouTube, wherever you are, think about these questions when you next go engage with your team. The big picture thing, where are we going? So ask your teams, where are we going? And engage with them. That sets the big picture. Secondly, where are you going? from, as the business owner, asking one of your team, where are you going? Because it helps them sit back and say, hang on, this is the big picture we're all going in. This is my part in it. The third question, what's going well, right? And you just be quiet and listen. What's going well? Fourth question, what key suggestions do you have for improvement? Because it brings out the innovation. Fifth, how can I help you, right? Massively important as a leader. It's not about go and do. It's how can I help you? How can I help you get the things right? And then the sixth question is, what suggestions do you have for me? And I think that's also critical. Good leaders have high emotional intelligence, and they ask, what suggestions do you have for me? So that's the first thing. Ask lots of questions. The second thing is, and I've hinted at it already, good leaders have high emotional intelligence. They're not afraid to not know everything. In fact, I've become quite fond of the thing of I've fallen in love with not knowing, not having all the answers. And I think good leaders typically want to be in that space. You need to have some of the answers. You need to know where you want to go, but trust your team and build them up. And the third thing, John Maxwell does speak about, I think, called in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He talks about the law of the lid. The law of the lid basically sits on top of the person's head, and a person is limited by their own ability to lead. Right? So as their lid gets higher and higher, they can lead better. And so the issue there is that people need to learn new techniques, new skills, new leadership capabilities, and potentially as an and here, or they need to surround themselves with other people who can think differently. Don't be afraid to surround yourself with people who do things better than you, because actually, as the leader, that's part of your emotional intelligence to say, hey, I can't do this all, but he or she can. The other point, of course, is you can seek outside help. So remember, business is all about adding value to others, right? Business is all about adding value to others. It's about solving problems. And through that, you get rewarded. You need teams who innovate. You need teams who solve problems, who think differently, who have a can-do attitude all the time. They know the strategic direction, and they are empowered to go after it. Leadership does that. Good leadership does that. If you want to understand more about how you can improve your leadership, become a better leader, grow your organization, I would be absolutely thrilled to offer you a no obligation whatsoever, 90-minute strategy session. Easiest way to set that up is to give me a call or drop me a text on 0222 332 669, 0222 332 669. It's my personal mobile. Or give me an email at chris@wcbe.co.nz. Have a fantastic week. See you again soon. Bye-bye.